Hello there, my lovelies. Welcome back to my channel, Boomy Reactions. For those of you who are new, my name is Boomy and thank you for watching. Right, today, guys, I'm signing in for my weekly dose of Mr. Ballen's ghoulish, grim, creepy stories. So here we are. Watch along with me. So this is a video that's been requested by quite a few of you now. So here we are. So we've got, are you a Robert or a Robert Z? 1986. Boomy, what I saw in my room still haunts me is Mr. Ballen's personal experience, and it's wild. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then we have the same request, which has come from Donald Hillman 4943. And you say, Mr. Ballen, what I saw in my room still haunts me. So yeah, this has been requested by quite a fair few of you in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to comment, my lovelies. Right, okay, so this is his own personal ghost story. Oh my God. I don't know what it is about his ability to story tell. He's such a good storyteller, isn't he? I don't know whether it's how relatable he is or how descriptive he is or how the story just flows. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm hanging on his every word. And I can feel the chills building from my toes up, and then it all goes up your neck. And admittedly, I do like being scared. I love horror films. So these stories are, I think they're fantastic. So here we are, the weekly dose of scary stories. And guys, if you're enjoying these reactions, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Thank you so much in advance, my lovelies. I say that an awful lot. You're all my lovelies. If you're interested, guys, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. That link is over here. And if you would like to help support my channel any further, I have a Patreon account. Oh, yes, I do. And if you fancy checking that out at all, that link is in the description below. Okay, I'm ready.
Where is it? I heard the door open. I heard the bells. I heard the pot. I heard the footsteps. I saw the door
bells
open.
again. What is it with bells?
I watched it walk down the aisle. I watched it bend over. It's in the room. Where is it? And this is night 1. There's 2 more nights of this. It gets worse.
What? Oh, okay. So aside from these stories being so creepy, I love the visuals that they put alongside the videos here. They are just the creepiest, scariest, and it really, I don't know, it really nails down that, that chill running up your spine when you're listening to these stories. I absolutely love these videos. I love Mr. Ballen. So what's happening here? It sounds
when I was 16
already.
years old, I was an avid snowboarder. Starting from the time I was like 12 years old, I used to always go snowboarding with the same 2 guys, my 2 very close friends, Wolf and Nick. Every winter, me, Nick, and Wolf would go up to Nick's family's cabin that was up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Just snowboard, and it was great. Every time we went up to this cabin in New Hampshire, it would be me, Wolf, Nick, and
I'm getting Stark vibes from Wolf. No idea who he is, but I'm getting Stark vibes. Winter is coming.
And then Nick's mom and dad. Unexpectedly, leading into my 16-year-old winter, Nick's father passed away. We were actually planning on going on a trip to the mountains that winter. And I remember speaking to Wolf and being like, I don't know if it's even appropriate to ask about this trip, because we knew that Nick was very close to his father, and not to mention, like, every time we went on this particular trip up to the mountains, Nick's dad was always with us, and it just seemed like, how can we possibly now go on this snowboarding trip? Not only is it a low priority item, but just the dynamic is all different now.
Maybe he'd like the distraction. I think I always I never know what to say when it comes to friends or people that have lost a loved one. I get very worried I'm going to say the wrong thing or the most inappropriate thing. Not laugh inappropriately or anything like that, but just say something that's not helpful. So I get really in my head about it, and I never know what to say, because you want to say something comforting, but if I was in that position, I think I'd be thinking, okay, that sounds lovely, but it doesn't help. Do you know what I mean? It's an awkward position to be in. But I ask him. I think that's the right answer, isn't it? Ask Nick what he would like to do. He might welcome the distraction.
Nick called us
the
and was
reminder
like, hey,
of his
so
dad.
We are still going to do the snowboarding trip to the cabin in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And so, Wolf and I, we spoke and we're like, let's just go with it. I mean, maybe it's like, maybe they want to do something that is maybe is a fond memory of their father, their husband.
Yeah.
And so we agreed to go. So he passes away maybe a few months before we end up going up to the mountains. Okay. And so the grief was still definitely there, but also just, again, that the dynamic was it was like the elephant in the room, right? Like as we're driving up, we drove in the same car. Me, Wolf, Nick, and then Nick's mom was driving. It was so apparent that Nick's dad was missing because he was always in the car with us when we drove up. Anyhow, so we make the trip up to New Hampshire and we're planning to be up there for 3 days. So the house itself wasn't really a cabin, it was a house, it was a small house. It was on a mountain. And if you think about the way a mountain works, it's a slope. And so in order to have a house level on a mountain, a portion of it needs to be on stilts.
Yeah.
Right? The portion that's kind of hanging off the mountain. And then the other part of the house is kind of like embedded in the mountain itself. Yeah. And when you drive up to the house, there's a wraparound porch that goes around the house. Okay. The majority of it is on the stilted section of the house.
So this is all very relevant to the story. Oh, okay. Oh, he's building the story.
Right,
okay,
so if you're on the wraparound porch, your footsteps are going to echo. Like you can hear those footsteps because you're above the ground. When you step into the house, you open a door. It actually opens inwardly. There were sleigh bells that were on the door, on the inside of the door. So anytime you open the door, you hear those sleigh bells ringing.
Like which bells?
And as soon as you step foot into the house, if you took one step into the house, right? So you step on the wraparound porch, you open the door, sleigh bells ring. When you step into the house, your right foot would be in the kitchen. You'd be standing on linoleum. And your left foot would be on shag carpet, which is like the dining room. Okay. And that's the way the house is laid out. As soon as you walk in, kitchen on your right, dining room on your left. And if you keep walking, you're going to enter into this living room. And if you turned around in the living room and looked up, you would see a lofted second floor.
Mr. Ballen has a almost photographic memory of this place. This is either a memory that has really, really spooked him, or he's tried to make sense of details about this over and over again and, trying to recreate it in your mind, but you're like, oh no, but, the ground was like this, that couldn't have happened, this noise couldn't have been made, Okay, all very relevant, I'm sure.
If you walk into the house, again, your right foot's in the kitchen, your left foot's in the dining room, and you walked as if you were going into that living space, but stopped about halfway across the house, you could look to your right and there'd be one hallway. There's only one hallway, it's a small house. And this hallway is bringing you, call it, into the mountain. If you think about, again, the layout of the house, you have a portion of the house that's sitting in the mountain and a portion of the house that's on stilts. Well, this hallway leads into the section of the house that's in the mountain. And if you go down this hallway and it turns left, it's a short little hallway, it brings you to one room. And that room is where me, Nick, and Wolf would stay every time we went snowboarding at this mountain. That room, if you go into it, it's a corner-fed room. You open the door and immediately to your right is a bunk bed. I would always sleep on the bottom bunk and Wolf would sleep on the top bunk. Our feet would be closest to the door. In the center of the room with the remaining space, because this is not a big room, there was like a queen size bed. It was like a slightly larger bed that sat basically in all of the free space that was left over in the room. It was sitting right in the middle of the room. And that's where Nick would sleep. So basically the room was completely packed with 3 places to sleep and really not much else. There was a very small space between the queen size bed and the bunk bed. So you could walk between those two, but that was about it. Yeah. So that layout's very important and you'll see why. We snowboard for the day, we come back to the cabin and me, Nick, and Wolf decide we're gonna crash super early and get up early and have a full day of riding ahead of us because we're avid snowboarders. So we go to our room, the one that's kind of, you go down that hallway and you get to the room I just described. Yeah. We plan on going to bed early, but we were excited and so we stayed up gaming for a bit. And then maybe around like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, Nick who again is in the queen size bed, and Wolf was in the top bunk. They ultimately fall asleep. I was still awake, and what struck me, and it always struck me whenever I slept in this room, is when you turn off all the electronics and you're just laying in bed in this house, in particular this room, it is pitch black. There's no windows. You're in the segment of the house that's, you know, in the mountain. It is truly pitch black. Okay. Not to mention the house itself, there weren't really any neighbors nearby, because this house, Nick's family had purchased it a while ago when this used to be an active ski resort, the mountain itself that it was on. But it wasn't anymore, and most people that were living there had left and sold their property. But a few people had decided to stay, and so Nick's family was one of them. So they had this cabin on an abandoned ski resort. There was virtually no streetlights, there's virtually no neighbors, and so at night, when you're laying in this room, like I was this night, you're really struck by just how dark and quiet it is. I mean, basically no white noise, I mean, silence and pitch black. And so I'm laying there, and one other detail that needs to be brought up before we get into what actually happens. So Nick had two much older brothers. They were in their 30s, and we're 16 years old. And
there's quite the age
we were
gap
expecting one of them, we didn't know which, to swing by the house at some point over the next few days. Okay. That's what Nick's mom had said. Nick had kind of reiterated it. And I think that Wolf and I understood that, you know, now that Nick's father was gone, that they were just kind of trying to find a way to fill the void that was left from the father passing. And so we were expecting over the course of that weekend for someone, one of the two brothers, to come to this house and stay with us for a night or whatever it was. Okay. I had never met either of these two brothers. I knew they existed, but I had never met them before. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I know that probably one of them is going to show up at some point, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, whenever it is.
So important to remember, I assume that you are expecting another body to join your party, another person to arrive at this cabin. Okay, so, you know, you're going to expect them. You're not going to be freaked out. Okay.
Man, it's giving me goosebumps just thinking about this.
I can tell.
So that night, as I'm laying in bed, I'm thinking about how dark and quiet it is. I remember the only light in the room was the digital clock, the little red digital clock, and it was like a beacon in the light. And that doesn't emit much light, but when it's pure darkness, it does. And I just could not fall asleep. I remember I got to a place where I started counting how many hours of sleep I might get if I fell asleep right then and there, which is never a good sign. That means you're not close to sleeping. No. If you're like, okay, if I fell asleep now, I'll get 3 hours and 22 minutes of sleep, right? Like that's where I was at mentally.
Oh, at least he hasn't resorted to trying to count sheep yet.
At some point, I think it was around 3 a.m, I remember looking at the clock and thinking, wow, it's gotten so late and I'm still awake.
Yeah, oh man, I'm still awake.
I hear footsteps on the wraparound porch. In a situation
3
where,
in the morning.
You know, as I'm telling it, you're going to think, how did you not raise, you know, a red flag immediately? Okay. In real time, in real life, your brain goes to great measures to convince you that everything is okay.
Yeah.
It really takes an enormous amount of anomalies to stack up for your brain to say something's wrong. And so that's what happened in this first night. I hear footsteps on the wraparound porch, and I immediately assume, even though we're talking, it's like 3 a.m, I just assume that it's got to be one of Nick's brothers arriving to be a part of this weekend getaway.
I think you would, wouldn't you? Yeah.
So I really actually didn't think anything of it. I actually just thought, well, you know, when he comes in the house, if he happens to come in here to check on us, I'll just pretend to be asleep in case, you know, he were to see that I was awake. I don't want to have a conversation with him. Number one, it's 3 a.m. Number two, I don't know the guy. I'm just going to pretend to be asleep. So that's all I'm thinking about. Not worried, not scared, not anything.
I think that's the normal thing to do. Can you imagine being that person that sat up and was like, hello, I don't know you. Who are you? 3 a.m, complete stranger. You'd pretend you're asleep. Okay.
Footsteps on the wraparound porch. And then the door opens, and I can hear the sleigh bells that are on the door itself. I can hear those chime as the door opens. Again, no part of me is concerned about this. I'm thinking it's a little bit weird that they're arriving at 3 a.m, but we knew that his brothers had these weird work schedules where they might show up in the middle of the night. So
Which
it was
normalizes
just,
it
it
even
was
more.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Sleigh bells ring, and then I hear what sounds like a pot, like a kitchen pot, fall and hit the linoleum floor in the kitchen. And I remember just the sound stood out to me. It just seemed like this person's kind of making a bit of a commotion in the middle of the night here.
If they're doing shift work, you would think, oh, okay, they've come in, they've just finished the shift. Maybe they're hungry. They just want a quick snack before they head off to bed. You know, just as soon as he mentioned shift work, my mind is immediately going to, okay, this isn't actually that abnormal.
And the door didn't shut. And I noticed that. I figured they were maybe bringing their stuff in, right? They're offloading some stuff. And they're leaving the door open.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, this is... Just thinking about this, it's really making me feel uncomfortable.
He's getting creeped out, isn't he? Even talking about it, you can... I can sense it. I think that's what makes Mr. Ballen a good storyteller as well. It's very... I don't know, he's very, like, easy to connect to. And he's quite easy to read, isn't he? So, you know, you feel quite empathetic.
So I hear the footsteps in the wraparound porch. The door opens. I can hear the sleigh bells. A pot falls and it hits the linoleum floor.
Okay.
The footsteps that I could hear on the wraparound porch, because it's on stilts, right? Like the porch is hovering over the ground. You can hear those footsteps. Well, when these footsteps continued into the house, where you're on a concrete slab and there should be no sound, like I shouldn't hear echoing footsteps, it sounded like it was on the wraparound porch still, but the noise was getting closer to me. So it was like the footsteps sounded totally natural out on the wraparound porch, but once they were in the house, it didn't really make any sense that I could hear them as if the footsteps were standing on something that was suspended off the ground.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. You're in the house on a concrete slab. And so I hear these footsteps. The door hasn't shut. The front door is wide open. We're in the middle of winter here. We're in the middle of nowhere, too.
Which is unusual.
And I'm thinking about that, but I'm still thinking it's got to be Nick's brother, one of Nick's brothers. The footsteps continue through the house. And they stop about halfway through the house. If you open that door and walk halfway through the house. And then the footsteps began to walk down the hallway towards our room. So they come down the hall. And they get right outside the door, which is shut. The door to our room is shut. And I'm sitting there. Again, my feet are closest to the door.
Mind is
it's
going
pitch
there.
black in the room, minus the, digital clock. And I'm thinking, why didn't they shut the front door? Of all the weird things that have happened, the fact that I'm hearing footsteps as if they're on the wraparound porch, but they're getting louder and moving through the house, the thing that really just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up was
the door.
Why didn't they shut the front door?
I get that.
That just seems like such a bad idea. There's animals out there. There's a host of things out there.
And it's freezing.
Like, why aren't you shut? And not to mention, it's freezing outside.
That's it.
There's a space between the bunk bed, the bottom bunk that I'm on, and the top bunk. There's a space that I can see clear as day. Whoever walks in the room, I'm gonna see them when they walk past the foot of the bed. But because of the top bunk, my view is actually obscured, and I wouldn't be able to make out someone's face, for example. I could really only see their middle section.
Okay.
And so when the door opens and this shadow figure walks into the room, which by the way, I'm in a pitch black room, and I clearly make out a black silhouette.
Yeah.
This thing walks into the room, and it's obscured, so I wouldn't have been able to see its head or upper body anyways, but its hips are so high that I can't even really see those. Those are at the level that I would expect someone's upper body or head to be at, meaning this figure that's walked in, its legs are extremely long.
Super tall.
And so if it was proportionally the size of a human, you're talking about maybe a 10-foot tall person.
Weird. Like a kind of Slender Man thing coming in through the doorway. All you can see is the silhouette. Oh no. Oh, okay. At this point, you can almost hear it, can't you? You can hear sound effects going on in this story, and you can hear the heart rate picking up. Oh.
we're in a space that is not a 10-foot high ceiling. And so this thing walks in, and as soon as I see it, and I make out that black silhouette, even though it's pitch black in the room, I clearly see the silhouette that is unnaturally tall, combined with all the things that I've just thought about, mainly the door's still open. They've made kind of a commotion. I can hear these weird footsteps. I instantly was frozen with terror. Frozen. Petrified. I'm like, it's not Nick's brother. And even if we're not talking about paranormal here, this is such a bad situation. Even if that's just some dude who's come into the house, that's a really bad situation. So no matter what, this is a really bad situation, but what I'm looking at doesn't make sense. It's an unnaturally tall person. They've left the door open, and I hear their footsteps all over the house, and it walks in past the foot of the bed. And I'm laying there, and I can't see higher than its waist because it's obscured by the top bunk. And this thing makes this like facing movement, like a military facing movement, and begins to walk down the aisle between the queen size bed in the middle of the room and the bunk bed where I am. And it's walking down right next to me, and I'm literally sitting there unable to move. And I remember thinking, I can't do anything. I'm truly frozen with terror. And all I remember thinking is, whatever happens, just don't bend down and look at me. That will ruin my life. If this thing so much as looks at me, that's it, I'm done. So walks down the aisle, it's right next to me. I'm literally frozen. And it does another quick movement, but it's facing away from me now. Facing towards Nick in the center of the room. And it bows onto and then down through Nick's bed and disappears.
Oh my God!
In the movies, in a movie, as soon as the ghost disappears into the floor, whoever's hiding would make a run for it. In real life, there's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as people disappearing into the ground. So I'm expecting this thing to just get back up again. I couldn't understand that it was, what did it disappear into the bed? That's not possible. Where is it? I heard the door open. I heard the bells. I heard the pot. I heard the footsteps. I saw the door open. I see the thing walk in. I watched it walk down the aisle. I watched it bend over. It's in the room. Where is it? And for hours, all night, I laid there absolutely petrified.
I'm self-soothing. I'm gonna rock. Oh my gosh, I don't even need visuals for this video. That is grotesque. What? Oh my gosh, what would you do? I think if I was in oh gosh, in Mr. Ballen's position here as a 16-year-old, I think I would scrunch my. I found myself doing it then. Actually, I think I would lie there and scrunch my eyes up and just not want to watch. But then there's that awful. There's that part of you that would have to just open your eye just to see if they were gone, and if there was something. This might actually be the scariest one I've seen from Mr. Ballen. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Expecting this thing to come back up and just look at me. That was my biggest fear, is whatever this thing was, I did not want it to look at me.
No. A silhouette is one thing, so you don't want to know what it looks
worst.
like.
I'm laying there
It'd stay with
frozen.
you.
I can only move my eyes.
Yeah.
All night.
Just turn away.
Finally, I hear Nick's mom out in the living room making coffee. This was probably like 5, 6 in the morning. And it was like the first time that I'm like, okay, I'm safe now. Even if it's in the room, I'm safe to just go because I can hear someone out there. And I can hear her speaking. I knew it was her. And so I go right out there. And now you got to understand that even though this was a horrible situation that I still can't really explain, I know that she has just lost her husband.
Yeah.
And so the idea of approaching this subject, which effectively is going to turn into ghosts, right? I've never had a paranormal experience before this. I've never had a paranormal experience since, right? Like I'm more or less a skeptic, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start talking about ghosts to the woman who's recently bereaved. It just felt really inappropriate.
You can't do it.
And so I was really struggling with how I wanted to communicate what happened. And so I went to the table, she got me a cup of coffee, and and we know each other well, you know, she knows me well.
I'm trying to imagine that I'm 16-year-old Mr. Ballen here. What's Mr. Ballen's best name? I can't remember. As a 16-year-old as well, you've got very little life experience. How would you even begin to talk about that experience? Because you would want to. I think your brain would desperately be trying to make sense of it, and there'd be a part of you that wanted or might feel a bit comforted in knowing that someone else had experienced something similar and you're not going crazy. It's hard. What would you do?
And she definitely picked up that something was wrong.
Yeah.
But didn't really ask anything yet. She was just kind of puzzling, like kind of sizing me up a little bit.
Oh my gosh, I was meant to mention this earlier. I completely forgot, guys. Sorry, I have already paused this an awful lot. So the time lapse between that happening and Mr. Ballen waking up and it being 5 or 6 in the morning, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Because you would not be able to fall back asleep after experiencing something so creepy. Would that point to it? Maybe. This, I do have an inner cynic. It's probably not as cynical as a lot of you out there. But maybe that might indicate that could have been somewhere in between, half awake, half asleep, bit of elements of a dream. Do you think? Just with the time frame, you would not be able to fall back asleep very quickly after that. So maybe that could indicate that it might have been a dream. I'm not saying it was, but trying to rationalize.
And the only thing I could think to do was to just ask, hey, did either of your two sons, Nick's older two brothers, did they stop by at any point last night?
Yeah.
Did they stop by? And she's like, no. Mm-mm. And I'm sitting there like, okay. And I'm just like, I must have had a reaction that was obvious to her. And she just goes, I heard my husband here last night too.
Oh.
And, that made it a lot worse. Because on the one hand, you have a situation where she is confirming something that part of me hopes is a bad dream.
But Nick didn't feel that
Number
it was
two, she's now saying it's
Nick's
her husband.
dad.
And so I intuitively assumed that she has somehow figured out what I'm stressed about that probably isn't real.
Yeah.
And because she's grieving, she's created a story where her husband is now in the house, looking over us. I really believed that she didn't hear anything, that she just somehow understood that I had this weird feeling and she'd turned it into my husband's in the house.
Something positive. Yeah.
And I just couldn't ask any more questions at that point. I felt like I had set her up for this awkward exchange. I felt really bad that that was the discussion we were having. I also thought if that's true, I don't want to have this conversation. I really was just dumbfounded on what to do in this situation. And this is night 1. There's 2 more nights of this, and it gets worse. So Nick and Wolf eventually come out of the bedroom and they come to the dining room. And the same way I felt reserved talking to Nick's mom about what happened, I had the same feelings about Nick because it was his father. And I also just felt like that would be inappropriate.
But I'm guessing, reading between the lines here, that Nick at this point feels very strongly that what he felt or what he saw wasn't Nick's dad.
Wolf, he's not a family member, and he's my buddy, and I kind of pulled him aside and I kind of told him what was going on as best as I could. But I kept it kind of generic. I was like, I could have sworn I heard someone in the house last night. Like I could have sworn. And he's like, yeah, you know, you're probably dreaming. You know, like that's what this is.
But
And I was like,
yeah.
no, like I wasn't, but I can't make sense of it. And I was like, can you just do me a favor? And at this point, Nick actually overheard the conversation, and I very much kind of cut ties with what I was talking about. I was like, yeah, I just thought I heard something last night. It's just me freaking myself out. And I was like, can you guys tonight, when we get back from snowboarding, can I fall asleep ahead of you? That way I'm asleep, you guys can just fall asleep after I do, and then I'll sleep through the night, no big deal. No.
I'd ask them if we could all sleep in the bed. Can we all sleep in the bed? And then I can hold someone's hand if this happens again.
Like, all right, yeah, weirdo, whatever. So I'm like, all right, my big plan is I'm just gonna go to bed really, really early. Because I didn't sleep the night before, so I'm thinking I'll fall asleep right away.
I get it though, because I think it's the maybe in the back of his head he's thinking, well, if I'm not awake during the witching hour, 3 a.m, that's when all the creepy stuff happens, isn't it? It's never before. It's always at 3 a.m, between 3 and 4. Maybe he's thinking, if I'm not awake during that hour, then I'll miss it completely. And if that is going to happen at this point, I would rather just sleep through it. You know, we've got 2 more nights here. I'm happy to just snooze through this.
So we go out, we snowboard for the day. My mind is off of what happened. And frankly, I'm starting to convince myself that had to have been,
it must have been a dream.
Sleep paralysis. Even though I'd never had that before, I was Googling some stuff. Maybe sleep paralysis. Maybe it was just like a really intense dream. I would just like, there has to be something. Yeah. Like this is too weird. It has to be something explainable. Turns out it wasn't. We get back from snowboarding, and
I can feel it again.
I am immediately going to bed. Pretty much immediately. It was like maybe 6 o'clock. I was like, I'm going to bed.
Just throw the covers over your head.
I get in bed, and all I'm thinking about is what happened the night before, and I can't fall asleep.
Oh no.
Eventually, Nick and Wolf, they come in the room, and they're trying their best to stay awake. So that I can fall asleep, but it's getting later and later, and I can't fall asleep. And now I'm back to that, like, okay, if I fall asleep now, I get 6 hours of sleep. And they finally just said, hey man, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. So they both fall asleep, and I'm awake.
Oh no.
And I was so upset with myself. Like,
it's gonna make it worse.
You screwed yourself.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just fall asleep, you dummy? And I remember the only thing that I did that really made this real, looking back at it, is I put a knife, like a kitchen knife or something, in the springs above me. So I'm in the bottom bunk, like basically right under the top bunk. I put a knife in there.
Oh, be careful.
And I'm laying in bed, and I'm constantly looking over at the digital clock. And it was probably around 3 a.m. It was late enough that it was like, okay, this is about the time that happened last night. And my heart just sunk when I heard those footsteps in the wraparound porch again.
Oh.
They sounded the same as they did the night before. I was like, that has to be one of Nick's brothers. But the door opens, I hear the sleigh bells, I hear the frickin' pot fall on the ground. It was like deja vu. The exact same thing is happening. And these footsteps start walking through the house. And again, referencing how movies would portray this, the person who's me in the movie is like, okay, I'm gonna get this knife and I'm gonna position myself over here because I know what's gonna happen and I'm gonna protect myself. In real life, I'm like, this thing's gonna be in my room, potentially. It happened last night. It's apparently happening again. Please, for the love of God, don't bow into me the way it bowed into the floor the night before. Don't.
Oh no, he's foreshadowing it. Oh no. I know our mind wants to rationalize and it'll go to extremes, won't it? But depending on what that thing is, that knife may or may not be very helpful here. You never know. Maybe if it is a shadow, it's just going to go straight through. Or I always believed that knives aren't going to be too effective if it's a ghost. But who knows what it is at this point.
Look at me.
Just don't look at me.
Ruin
Oh,
my
no.
life if some entity just engages with me, just looks at me. That will ruin my life. This thing walks down the hall.
You don't want to put a face to
I
it.
hear those footsteps coming down the hall. And just pretend for a second, forget the paranormal aspect. Pretend it's the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere.
And that's a real thing.
And
Still
a stranger
scary.
is walking around your house.
Yeah.
That alone is horrifying.
Yes.
The footsteps come right outside the door, and I'm looking at the knife that's right underneath the bed. And I'm petrified. I cannot move. I'm drenched in sweat.
Oh.
Just from the few seconds that it's taken this thing to go from the door to the front of my bedroom. Because I know what's happening. Again, it's happening again. I'm not crazy. It's just happening again. What the F is this? And I'm petrified. I can't reach. I'm so worried about making any noise that would alert this thing that I'm here. That I can only move my eyes. And I remember even thinking that I shouldn't move my eyes too quickly because it might hear that.
I can see
Like
the
this is
terror
a
in Mr.
primal
Ballen's eyes.
level of fear. The door opens. It walks into the room, goes right past the foot of my bed, and I'm, again, petrified.
Oh, no.
And it walks down, after making its facing movement, it walks down the aisle between me and Nick. And I remember what happened the night before, where it folded into Nick and disappeared, and I'm just thinking to myself, please don't turn and bow into me. Please, whatever happens, just don't do that. So it turns away from me and does the same thing it did the night before, folds onto Nick and disappears into the ground.
I mean, it's still super creepy.
But again, even though in the movies, this would be the same thing happening, night 2, it's the same routine. It'd be like, oh, the ghost is in the floor now. I can go alert the authorities because now it's safe. In real life, I'm like, where did it go? I know this happened last night, but it still doesn't make any sense.
You can't guarantee.
It's in the room.
No,
it has
no.
to be. This is a real thing. It came in the room. It's somewhere. Is it under my bed? Where is it? All night. I lay there. This is the second night that I've not slept. When I heard Nick's mom out in the other room, it was like such a relief. Because I didn't give a crap at this point about being polite. I wasn't gonna try to, distance myself from the conversation around ghosts. I was gonna go out there and be like, what's wrong with this house? And so I hear her and I go right out to the living room.
So he hasn't slept.
And I tell her everything in as acute detail as I possibly can.
And he's remembered this
And
in a
as
lot
I'm
of
telling her
detail.
this, her reaction didn't line up. Her reaction was not surprise, terror, confusion. It was empathy. She felt bad
Just
for
again.
me. It was sympathy. You don't understand. I'm listening, but you just don't understand what's happening. And I'm telling her all every detail I can possibly muster. And at the end of it, or towards the end, she just kind of stops me. She's like, John, I told you yesterday, and again, I heard it last night. That's just my husband. I heard him last night too. You got nothing to worry about. And I was like, no. That cannot be. That cannot be what it is. And she was like, I heard him open the door. I heard the pot fall. I heard him walk through the house. I'm assuming he went into Nick's room again with you guys. And I'm like, what is happening? So totally now just beside myself. I remember I was crying actually, during this conversation. I'm just crying. Not even tears of sadness as much as just what's happening.
It's confusion, but it's the fact that from Nick's mum's reaction, I don't know, it's kind of like, this is inevitable. This is going to happen again. I'm not surprised. It's going to happen. Okay. We just accept it. We get on with it. And that is quite terrifying for you, Mr. Ballen, to kind of just accept that, knowing, oh gosh, it's going to happen again. It's interesting that his mum would be so certain that whatever this is, it's her husband, because what best case scenario or most realistic scenario, this is actually someone entering the house. You'd have to be very, very confident that that was the spirit of your recently deceased husband and that they were harmless. Because otherwise, what I think most people would go to, oh my gosh, who the hell has just broken into my house? They're going into my youngest child's bedroom and his two friends. I'm going to get out of bed and get a weapon. I'm going to smack them around the side of the head. Maybe that's just me. You'd have to be overwhelmingly confident that that was your husband. I think that's the weirdest part of this story for me right now.
Like I needed my mom.
Aww.
Like I felt so helpless. And no offense to Nick's mom, but I just felt like I was with a lunatic. How? But like at the same time, she's recalling the exact same things as me.
Yeah, this is an adult, but they're not
How do I
helping.
put that together?
Oh.
I remember thinking, I need to leave. I need to get out of here. I can't be here anymore. But then I thought about, like, how am I going to make this happen? Nick's mom and Wolf and Nick, they're not leaving today. And it was pretty clear that Nick's mom liked the fact that she, heard her husband walking around the cabin. She's not trying to leave. There's one more night that we're here, and I would have to tell my parents to drive, my mom or my dad, to drive to New Hampshire and come get me because I'm seeing ghosts. Like, this was a trip that I loved. I looked forward to this trip every year. It wouldn't have made any sense, and they would have been like, what's wrong with you? And I honestly was not prepared to have those conversations with my mom and dad. Yeah. I was not prepared to be like, let me tell you about the ghost I saw over the past 2 days.
Because that's an awkward thing to have to keep retelling over and over again, because you're not sure if you saw it, you're not sure if maybe you're being crazy. On a number of different levels, this is a very unwanted, very unpleasant conversation, not one that you want, and yet one that you feel that you need to talk about, what you need to talk to someone about just to confirm that it happened, you're not crazy. Oh gosh.
And so I was just kind of resigned and decided to stay. In retrospect,
just one night left.
I think I should have called my parents and been like, that's what parents are for. Like, get the hell up here. It doesn't matter why. Come get me. But it was such a confusing moment.
Confusing.
That I had no blueprint for how to handle. So I just stayed. Nick and Wolf finally get up. And I remember I made the decision as I'm sitting there thinking about what's happening is Nick's mom is reassuring me, about her husband being in the house. And I make the decision that I'm going to stay. Nick and Wolf come out of the room, and they come over, and Wolf pretty much immediately looks at me to get a gauge on what happened. And you can see it all over my face. I've been crying. And I told them what happened. And, Nick was always kind of a stoic, and he was just unaffected, Wolf, on the other hand, was more inclined to, at a minimum, believe something was happening.
Yeah.
He didn't know if it was a ghost or not, but he certainly understood that something's going on. And the fact that Nick's mom, as I'm explaining to Nick and Wolf what's going on, she was like reinforcing my argument. Yeah, I heard him too. I heard the door open. Yeah, I was upstairs. I heard him walk through the house. And Wolf's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And Nick is like, he didn't want to hear it, kind of. It probably was uncomfortable. It's about his father, or ultimately talking about his father. Before we went out snowboarding for the day, because Nick's mom would drive us and drop us off, she brought us to a local store, and we bought a coffee table because they've been looking to replace the one that was in their house. Basically, when you walk into the house, instead of turning down the hallway towards our room, if you just keep walking into the lofted area, at the foot of the stairs was a coffee table where they kept a landline phone because you're in the middle of nowhere and you got to have some way to call, and they put it right at the foot of the stairs on this little coffee table. Okay. But it had broken, or it was old, or whatever. I know they wanted a new one for a long time. We went out and got it. Me, Nick, and Wolf, we snowboard. We come back, we help offload the coffee table into the house, we put it at the foot of the stairs, and that night we go to bed. I was ruthless in trying to keep Wolf and Nick awake. I mean, I wasn't even trying to make jokes out of it. I was like straight up kicking the bunk, like kicking Wolf's bunk, like literally shaking Nick. I was doing everything in my power to keep them awake.
Yeah, no, I'm falling asleep.
Terrified. I'm terrified. It was like the opposite of how excited you get before Christmas and you can't sleep. It was like the opposite of those feelings, but you still can't sleep. It was like, this is the worst night of my life. And also, the nail in the coffin, if you will, is during the day that day, we found out that neither of Nick's two brothers were going to be making the trip. They weren't going to make it. So no one's going to be at the house. No one.
Oh, so you know now, should any of those noises happen on the third night, which is probably going to happen, it's 100% definitely not one of Nick's brothers.
No one should be at the house except for us. And so that night I'm laying there, and after all my attempts to keep Nick and Wolf awake, they fall asleep. Everyone's asleep. The house is pitch black. It's silent. And around 2, 3 in the morning, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I hear those footsteps on the wraparound porch. The door opens and I hear the sleigh bells ringing on the door. A pot falls on the ground and the footsteps walk into the house. And this is the third time that this has happened. So in a way, this was the first time that I was expecting something to happen. For it to walk down the hall, to come in the room, to come next to me, fold into Nick, and then that's it.
Now, if this was written off as a dream, you'd expect there to be some variation on it, wouldn't you? Something different, but it's not. It's exactly the same.
So the first time I had a little bit of, call it security, that something was going to happen, and I understood what was going to happen. I didn't understand it, but I expected something to happen.
Yeah.
But this was not the case this night. It walked into the house. Everything was the same. It walked into the house, but instead of going down the hallway towards our room, it kept walking into the lofted area. And the lofted area, from where I was laying, my foot's at the door, my head's back here, the wall straight, if I like sat up in bed and looked straight, the wall right there led into the area where this thing was.
Yeah.
So I'm basically, if there wasn't a wall, I'd be looking dead at this thing.
Right.
And I'm waiting for it to walk through the wall. As crazy as that sounds, I'm just anticipating something coming through the wall. After a long pause of it being in that lofted area, I hear it go up the steps. Listening to the creak of the steps as it goes up the steps, it makes my skin crawl. It's making me like emotional thinking about how terrifying that was.
You can see it.
Walks up the stairs, and now it's above me. And if the past 2 nights are any example, this thing has sunk into the ground 2 nights in a row and disappeared. And so now my fear is it's going to literally come through the ceiling, through the bunk, onto me. The sound stopped when it was upstairs. Got upstairs, and that's where Nick's mom slept. She was upstairs.
Right, okay.
So I laid in bed, petrified once again. I got my stupid knife sitting in the underside of the bed above me. And hours and hours of waiting for my literal worst nightmare to come true as some entity comes through the ceiling and goes into me. Or even just if it was like onto Nick, if it came through the ceiling and if out of my peripheries I'm watching like this beast come through the ceiling and float down and into Nick. It just, these thoughts in my head, they didn't make any sense. They were terrifying, but they were happening. I laid in bed and I couldn't fall asleep. I was now coming up on 3 days without sleep. So at some point that night, I did fall asleep, probably just out of sheer exhaustion. At some point in the morning, early morning, now probably like 5 in the morning, I wake up again and I can hear Nick's mom. It didn't sound like she was making coffee. It sounded like something was wrong. I couldn't place it, but it just sounded like she was acting emotional somehow. I couldn't tell if she was crying or not. But now it's like, it's the morning, it's my last day, I'm leaving today, I'm up, I'm out. And as soon as I walk out of the hallway and I look to the left into the dining room where I expect to see Nick's mom, and she's not there. And she's actually over at the foot of the stairs in the lofted kind of living room area next to this new coffee table we had just put in. And she's standing over this coffee table at the foot of the stairs where the entity had been the night before, the one deviation from the other 2 nights. And she's crying. Come here. She points to the coffee table. And she's down on her knees looking at the table. And now I can tell she's probably crying tears of joy. Because scratched into the coffee table were the words, "I love you."
No.
I was like, I'm done.
No.
That ended my friendships with certainly Nick. Wolf to a lesser degree, but I stopped snowboarding. I didn't go back to that cabin, even though I know Wolf did the next year. The theories about what happened, Nick's mom, it's possible she could have created a narrative, made it about her husband, and then she could have just as easily scratched that into the table. Yeah, I love you. That could have been her. It's also possible that she had sleep paralysis and I had sleep paralysis, and somehow we synchronized and had the same vision and she scratched into the table. Or, to be honest, what I believe, that was a ghost and that it interacted with the physical world and it did walk around the house. It did carve "I love you" into that table. That's the only time in my entire life that I've had anything happen like that. I don't have any other paranormal stories before or after. That's it. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to continue to do long versions of my ghost stories and scary stories that I find that I've been posting on TikTok. I'm going to do long versions of those on this YouTube channel. That's going to be the new direction for this channel. If you have a great ghost story, please DM me on Instagram. My handle is John B. Allen 416.
John.
JOHN BALLEN 416. Send me your story on Instagram. You can also hit me up on TikTok. That's Mr Ballen. And that's going to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Where is it?
I feel like I've been emotionally hijacked. I've been scared, absolutely witless. And it's just ended. I've got no support. That's a really, really odd one, isn't it? I feel like John, young John, is pretty convinced that it didn't feel like Nick's dad. Nothing comforting about that experience for him at all. So if you're going to accept that maybe, like John said, it's a ghost, okay? So you've got to accept that was the ghost of Nick's recently deceased dad, because he scratched "I love you" into the table. But it very heavily conflicts with, I feel, what Nick felt or who Nick felt the ghost was. No, it's hard. It's difficult to kind of make sense of it, isn't it? 100% absolutely can't be a physical thing, a physical person, because like Nick said, it vanished into the floor. Oh, I've got chills. Oh, I've got goosebumps. Oh, I can feel on my shoulders. Very different from Mr. Ballen's normally stories here, because he's personally invested in it. This is his personal experience. Oh my gosh, you can see the terror. You can see the emotion in his eyes at times. Oh, I feel very uncomfortable. I am creeped out. It's one of those, it's like, what do you do? I've had a similar experience, and it's one of only very, very few experiences I've ever had like this. And my experience was, being a lot younger, whenever we were to go and visit family, quite often I'd sit in front of my mum, sit on the floor. She'd be sat behind me, and my sister as well, either one of us. And she would just sit there playing with her hair, and quite often twisting it round her finger like that. It feels lovely when someone plays with your hair. So I know the feeling of it. It feels quite nostalgic, quite comforting. And I woke up in the middle of the night to this. Still makes my blood run cold even thinking about it. And I'm lying there in bed, feeling someone twirling my hair around their finger like that. And at first, I lay there for quite a while, I think anyway, quite a while, feeling comforted by it, thinking until I thought very clearly in my head, that's mum playing with my hair. And then it immediately stopped, and I froze. My blood ran cold. It's the only way I can describe it, because at the exact same second, I obviously was aware that my mum wasn't there. Oh, it's the most horrible experience I've ever had. Not very many experiences, but that is absolutely the worst. And people can tell you that it was a dream, or that you were half awake, half in a dream, but you're adamant, you absolutely know when you weren't. Yeah. Oh, that's freaked me out. Right, that's my weekly dose of being scared. That was a cracking story from Mr. Ballen. Thank you guys for requesting that one. I am well and truly freaked out now. I have chills running down my spine. Oh, I do love his videos though. I know, I'm a right weirdo. I love being scared. But that was different because it was personal. Oh my gosh. Ooh. Guys, I hope you are thoroughly as creeped out as I am. But enjoyed it in a weird kind of way, like us weirdos do. Take care of yourselves, my lovelies, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.